The three-way fight for the future of money. The battle is on for decentralized cryptocurrencies, corporate-issued non-sovereign currencies, and CBDCs. Moderated by Niall Murray, Salamantex, with Ali Madavji, Blockchain Founders Fund, Pratik Rao, Dubai Crypto Club, Eloisa Marcassoni, Def.ai Inc., and Vitautas Karalavicius, Bankera.
Hello, good evening, and thank you for still being here. We'll make it really quick. We'll skip the introductions, just very shortly. You've already seen the introductions, and we'll get right into it. So, if it's the three-way fight for money, so here we're looking at different concepts between cryptocurrencies, central bank decentralized currencies, which many people refer to as programmable money. And then finally, there are all these DeFi and decentralized protocols. I would also throw into the mix that there's maybe also another space of open banking protocols and things like that that also go into this. Do you really see this as a fight, or what kind of trends can we see, or can we actually comment on currently? Because as far as I see it, we have the Bahamas, who have issued some form of centralized currency. There's of course China that has a digital renminbi, but it probably is very, very different from what we expect. Take this off. Very, very different from what we expect decentralized currencies to be like. But if you may want to comment on that, how you see currently developing between these different asset forms.
So actually, then you think about the fight. So probably you can create three groups who are fighting. So it's the legacy banks who have a client base. They have an advantage because they're big. They have already clients. They have compliance teams, and we are slow, but they are very strong. Then you also have the fintechs, especially the ones which are utilizing the open banking. When we can build on top of the rails of the old banks the new financial products, or we can just build a new e-money institutions for payments. And these were strong for the last 10 years. And then you move to the third part, which is catching up, is the crypto. And I like to always show this example that now we are in the third bubble of cryptocurrency. In the third one, everyone was saying that Bitcoin is bad, it's only used for illegal matter. Then the second, 2017, everyone was saying that Bitcoin is still very bad, but blockchain is good, and we can use it everywhere. Now, in the third bubble, we are more or less saying that Bitcoin and blockchain and other cryptocurrencies are actually good, probably only for payments, and how you can see that the CBDCs, the central banks issued digital currencies, are emerging. We are more or less trying to use the blockchain technology. So actually now, I think it's more or less a fight between technology, the legacy in banks, the open banking, which is promoted by regulation, and then the open source, which is about cryptocurrency. And now I think they're more or less on the same line, and what will win in the future, we will see.
Yeah, so actually a technological battle. So do you think there's actually a technological battle going on, or what would you say? I mean, I can remember that when we started with cryptocurrency payments for merchants, actually the first thing was from our CEO, they closed down the bank accounts because they said, you've got something to do with cryptocurrencies. So it's quite good to see that we're now looking at more like a technological challenge, or how do you see this?
Thank you, Neil. Hi guys, I'm Rao, founder of Dubai Crypto Club, exclusive club for crypto community in Dubai. I run one of the biggest OTC desks here, so quite synonymous with the question of bank accounts. So I remember back in the days in 2017, the MCC issued one of the first licenses here in the region for property trading in crypto commodities. And we were the first ones to get the license, but banks were not on board with our vision, and they closed their bank accounts. So unfortunately, banking system is still struggling to really grasp what exactly crypto is, and they think it's kind of a threat. It's not really a threat when you see it, if you really come in on board as a regulator and see how it can, just streamlines all the trustless technologies that it brings. It kind of just gives you a little bit more edge onto the innovation rather than what you're having now. So onto the bank accounts, I would say. Dubai is in the same boat, but I feel like, in the future, in times to come, we see more crypto banks associating themselves with more on the retail audience and giving startups a different edge to not only by constrained by the old banking system, but just have a bit of edge onto the execution edge, just follow the execution and innovation rather than just wondering what to do with the current old banking system. So technological process, yes, 100% on board with Bitcoin and decentralized technologies.
Okay, so if we look at the technological challenges, there's actually also, if we look at the entire money system, we're also looking at the regulatory challenges. So if, especially if you are doing all these banking services and so on, then obviously you have to talk a lot to the regulators. Again, I can recall an example of ours where we were talking to the Austrian regulators, and they didn't really understand what was going on and what we were doing. And then now, however, they've really upped the game. They've gotten to understand the technology behind it and have issued certain regulations, and we have very good relations. How was your experience, and how do you see the regulatory environment in those markets that you operate in developing? I mean, as an example, there's MiCA for the European Union. Then here in Dubai, obviously, we're seeing from the ADGM and also via the DMCC, seeing a lot of efforts being made to be really innovative and advanced in regulatory regimes, which regulatory bodies are not really known for. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, actually, finance is an interesting subject to innovate and experiment because it's more or less still a social science. So you only can do experiments with actual people and actual consumers. Therefore, by the case, you can only more or less do the innovation, real innovation in the unregulated markets. One of the best examples would be even outside of crypto, the M-Pesa, which was brought in Kenya. It was unregulated. That would be probably impossible to do from zero in Europe because of so many regulation. And afterwards, there's a success case in an unregulated market, even somewhere offshore. Then, like the regulators in the developed markets, US, EU, Japan, you name it, then they try to think like, oh, maybe it's a good thing, and we can try to regulate and then like introduce it in the markets. So I think like the real sandboxes for fintech and crypto innovation is happening actually in those known offshore jurisdictions because we don't have regulation and they're open for innovation in that sense.
Okay, thank you.
And just to add on your point, the regulators are slow, but when you see that growth coming in, Bahrain is taking lead with their sandbox. ADGM is, very, very on board with. Just want to offer that solution to the global exchanges. I'm sure you guys know Kraken trying to get a license here in ADGM. Regulators are slow, but what excites me more about working here in the region here is they are proactive in approaching things firsthand as they see, rather than taking a backward approach of, okay, let somebody else do it and we just copy it. So we just had a call with DFSA. I'm running a securitization venture, and we are working closely with DIFC to come up with a whole structure of, because it's not only one tokenization, it's not only one securitization, but this whole pool of associated assets and services that people would like to offer to retail audience or investors who are particularly interested in investing into, let's say, tokenization industry or crypto industry. So they have a very proactive approach, but it's a patience game. We have to be really patient with the regulators and let them understand the tech, and then we can have a full-blown next level innovation in the region here.
Yeah, I would like to follow up on that, because one thing that comes to mind very often when I hear various projects and again talking about cryptocurrencies, then usually it's all talking about being disruptive and disrupting systems and so on. However, you cannot really disrupt a regulator, right? And you really have to have that patience. So sometimes, don't you think also it can be very frustrating for people who are in this space? They're really talking about mass adoption, but for instance, there's not even a proper, let's call it, acquiring payment solution available for cryptocurrencies so that merchants actually could accept this. And at the same time, as an asset class or whatever asset classes you could make out of decentralized digital assets, you just need to have the regulators, take the time to have them review what you have on hand and really seek that communication, right? And so in talking to regulators, what are your recommendations in that sense? Meaning, did you learn this on the job, or did you find that there were some experts that you could consult to help you to communicate? Because of course it's not that easy all of the time, right?
I mean, it's like a work, it's like a job in process, because there's a very fine line between not like making regulations that are not innovative, where basically you just pressure all the innovation that can come out of the region to being more compliant. Then you just like leave a lot of innovation off the shelf, what can get out of the region. And then on the other side, you don't want very loose regulations so that people from all over them can come in and exploit the resources. So it's a very fine line into deciding what can be allowed and what can't. And since a very new industry, it's a very evolving industry, literally you can be so innovative that there can be so many loopholes, as we know about DeFi and how it works on the yield farms. That's kind of like same thing, but there's 100 times more risk when there's a regulator that's coming in and saying, okay, we are doing security tokens. On the future of money side, we are doing, Emirati coin, let's say. So there's subtle amount of risk involved onto the compliance side for who can be the participants, who would be the one who would take the most advantage of the system if they keep, they keep the compliance on the low side. So what I would say is it's so much work in process, and what I like about regulators here in the region, they're willing to listen. So you go anywhere in the world, you have some suggestions, and they're like, okay, it just takes weeks for the meetings, but we are in touch with them on WhatsApp, like on the emails, and the next thing you know, we can have a call and we see, what, this is something that's really interesting for the region to involve, to get it involved, and they accept it, they want to hear us. So that's the biggest thing, because they take continuous feedback from we as innovators involving into the ecosystem, and they involve, these things into their considerations. So when we see that regulatory paper coming out, we can see there's a space for us, to play in that realm too. So it's very much work in process, but I'm pretty happy with the regulators here. It's going to take some time, but yeah, like all the traditional assets and traditional things take time. I think we're very well on a path to really disrupt, especially tokenization and securitization in the region.
Yeah, I would like to take that on. So if you have good communication with regulators, then there is, apparently then, your business is already in good hands. But then let's just say, in terms of the markets that you operate in, do you find, let's say that there are differences in the way how the regulators approach us and how you want to enter the market? And have you had experience where you had some, say, innovative product that you wanted to bring out, however, you first had to really pass it through the, let's say, an auditor or something, and then you had to wait, and that opportunity went away, but you could introduce it in other markets?
Yeah. So actually, we kind of usually have to go through approval from regulator, especially for our regulated part of business. And what usually helps a lot, well, because when you have different cases, when you actually bring, for examples, that somebody who is already supervised by them is doing more or less similar thing, and you show the examples and use cases, probably we see guys even have asked for approval. So it makes the process much easier when you try to explain something without having a working example, because when you have it kind of becomes a ping pong, and you can even your idea can be not innovated anymore after, say, 6 months or 1 year by trying to introduce it. So the best case is actually trying to kind of not a copycat, but show that somebody else in the market is doing the same. So when the regulator feels more comfortable. Another sense of what I saw from the regulators and how it's changing now to a better way, because before that we used to ask the experts about their opinion on regulation. We didn't used to ask the actual companies about that. And now we are changing more, especially in the markets we operate, when we are collaborating more with associations and actual businesses on the viewpoints of how we have to change the law and regulation. So it makes better because the players, the companies, they can help to set the rules in the market. So there are less errors, and then it's easier to operate in. Before, 5 years ago and so on, it was more or less when we were used to be the experts who probably didn't have a real street experience or real business experience. And then the regulation was more theoretical, and was very hard to make it in practice and make it competitive with other markets.
Okay, one final question, short answer. So do you see the banks winning this fight of technologies, or is it actually companies such as yours or some from the blockchain space? How do you see this fight going on?
Actually, I remember when the CEO of Goldman Sachs said that like they are also fintech company because nearly half of the people work in IT. So I think the banks are more or less winning because we're all the bigger ones. But the small companies, they have advantage because when we build a new product, we don't have to think over all the legacy systems and all the integrations. So at the beginning, they have a very, very good advantage of being small and starting from zero. But then later on, we become incumbent as the banks, and and then it's the case if we manage to survive it or not. So I think like the small ideas are coming from the small players because they are very flexible. But in general, I think still like all these small players will be acquired or will have to collaborate together and also become like a big banks, because in the long term, especially with all the cost of compliance and all the scalability, you have to be big to be in the market, which is actually unfortunate because I started my business in cryptocurrency because I like the idea that everything has to be distributed and centralized. Even there has to be like a huge number of exchanges for cryptocurrency to still be distributed. You cannot rely on one exchange, because then you become just a PayPal or any other payment system. So that's why I think I think cryptocurrency might win because it enables the distributed business models.
Okay, thank you very much. So time's up, but I want to, unfortunately I couldn't ask you the same question, but hey, I want to ask one thing. So if you look out into the space and you see, like say, the next year or even the next 5 years, if there was one buzzword that you want to give the audience here to remember, what would that be?
I would say trustless.
Okay, and same to you?
So if one buzzword, it would be distributed. And you have always remember the difference between distributed and decentralized, because distributed is what makes it like complete democracy.
All right, well, that's it for our panel here. Thank you very much for listening and watching.
Perfect.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.